Okay, and we are live. Okay, welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next Superstock live stream for today, December 3rd. We have back with us once again Fintech, PKK on the CSE, PKKFF, Johnson Joseph, the CEO. Johnson, welcome back.
Hey, Jack. Good to be with you.
Johnson's always great to have you. I want to talk about the big news this week, which I think the investor audience does not understand how significant it is, but we're going to talk about it. And now, for anybody that's new to the program, our goal at the Wall Street Reporter next Superstock live stream is to bring you stocks which have that 10x to 100x upside potential. And these are companies which are going after multi-billion-dollar market opportunities. They have multiple catalysts in place for creating value, and they're now at a key inflection point. Peak Fintech represents all those characteristics. The stock has been moving up from 40 cents to a high of over over $2 recently, Canadian, right? And we've had a number of 10 baggers, 20 baggers this year. We're going to find out now if Peak is going to be our fourth or fifth 10 bagger for 2020. We still have 27 days, 28 days. So Johnson, you got to get to work.
We'll do our best, Jack.
All right, we got to get the Peak to at least $4 to reach that mark. With that said, Johnson, let's jump into Tuesday's news announcement. Again, I think the audience doesn't quite understand the impact. So, in your own words, explain to us exactly what you're doing.
Okay. Well, the announcement basically just starts with the impact that social media is having on our world. The world is changing, the internet is changing the world, but specifically social media has had a huge impact on all of our lives over the last couple of years. Now, 20 or 30 years ago, if you wanted to be famous, Jack, you would essentially just move to Hollywood and take your chances there, right? But nowadays, all you need is social media account. Now, in all seriousness, social media has been proven to be very, very effective at moving products, and especially in China. Now, the announcement that we made on Tuesday, as you mentioned, we think that it's not fully understood by a lot of people. We've had some questions, so I wanted to come on the show today to help people get a better understanding of the announcement that we made on Tuesday. Now, there are two very important takeaways from that announcement we made on Tuesday. The first one is that the impact that social media has on retail sales in China. As I mentioned before, retail influencers are expected to account for about 150 or 170 million. Excuse me, 170 billion. I think it's billion, as in billion US dollars in sales this year in China. And those influencers are just getting started. As I mentioned, this is a phenomenon that's been catching on like wildfire, like over the last couple of years. Now, the first takeaway, the key takeaway from the release is that there's a systemic cash flow issue in China. Even though these influencers are very effective at selling products, they are also running into this cash flow issue, right? So they need money, upfront money to put on these shows. They also need money to fund some of the products that they are buying, right? So a lot of them are buying product. It's their responsibility, believe it or not, right?
I think what we should explain is, because it's such a new phenomenon. It's in China mostly. It hasn't caught on in the US, but basically, for anybody that, this has been in the Wall Street Journal, there's articles coming out on this. It's that basically in China, there's, mom and pops, just, influencers, they're basically live streaming themselves, talking about a product, sort of like the old, home shopping network.
The infomercials, exactly, right.
They talk about the product, whether it's a dress, shoes, whatever it is. And the way their system is set up, was it the Weibo? Johnson, is it Weibo? Which one is the WeChat?
Well, there are three apps, right? I think in the US, people are familiar with TikTok, right? So TikTok for videos or whatever. So they use TikTok over there to put on these shows. So they use TikTok, they use WeChat, and Weibo. So those are the top three social media apps that they use for these live streaming shows. But yeah, continue. Go ahead.
And the great thing about their system is, unlike in the US, you got to like go to a separate thing to pay with a credit card. Here you press. I mean, from what I understand, it's basically on the WeChat. You see the dress. You see what you press the button, boom, you get the thing.
Integrated payment, absolutely, yeah. So
and in China, social media is a huge thing for selling them. This is like a massive phenomenon, and everybody, a lot of there's thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs, mom and pops, people doing it as a what they would say, what do the millennials call it, a side hustle, right? This is a thing, or it's a serious business.
You know what? It's not just a side hustle. It's a serious business. Like a lot of people earn their livings. It's a full-time job, by the way. So those influencers, they put on shows. Some of them put on shows like every day. Like I mean, these live streams are always going on, right? So that's the way they earn their living. It's a huge tool for the retail industry in China. And as I was saying before, they still have that same cash flow problem that affects virtually every business in China, right? So what we are doing is they sometimes have to pause, right? Because they need to get the cash. They don't get paid on time or whatever.
Buy the product. They got to get cash to buy the product.
Yeah, exactly, right? To buy product, to put on the shows or whatever and stuff like that. So the analogy that I use is the following. So I say, you know, when you're driving, right? You're in a big city, and then you're on a street. You get a couple of green lights, and then boom, you get a red light, and you stop, right? You have to stop and pause or whatever. So that's the analogy that I like to use. What we are doing is we're stepping in and we're making that whole space a lot more efficient. We're bringing our lending hub to the industry, and we're saying, hey, you know what? You don't need to pause anymore. We're giving you green lights all the way, right? So we're coming in and we're giving you timely funding, making the whole industry more efficient. So that's what we bring in, and that's one of the important key takeaways of this news release. Yeah, the announcement that we made was with a specific retailer, Grupo Coin, based out of Italy. But this is just the first agreement that we have with one specific retailer, right? So the relationships that are important, really, it's not so much with Grupo Coin. It's really with those influencers, because those influencers will do business with retailers. They also do business with a lot of brands, right? Because they're bringing brands into China. They're helping sell these brands, and they're making money and they're profiting from it. So what we're doing is we're bringing efficiency, we're resolving the cash flow issue, and we're making our customary 2% fee on everything that gets processed through our lending hub network.
Okay, so really, when you think about kind of the big picture, you got this 2% that you're making on financing these deals. In a way, really, you have this live stream stuff is just one facet of the e-commerce stuff that you're financing in China. You also have the different distributors. You do like traditional bricks and mortars retail now. I think if somebody kind of thinks about it, essentially Peak is getting a 2% royalty on all potential e-commerce sales in China. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit. But I mean, you're not going to get the whole 100 billion or whatever it is, but you don't.
But you're absolutely right. Like, I mean, we're stepping in, right? We're stepping in. We're bringing efficiency. We're facilitating these transactions. These people, these entrepreneurs, e-shops, whatever you want to call them, influencers, they need cash flow, right? So we have visibility into their transactions. We see how they're doing, and we're able to use our analytics platform basically to qualify them for funding from our lending partners, and then we earn a fee. Now, that leads me to the second takeaway, right? That I want to address in the release, Jack. Now, I mentioned that these influencers, they sell products for retailers and specifically for brands also, right? They're very, very big on brands. Now, one thing you have to understand about China is, especially the millennials, they like, fashion and all of these things. They particularly like things that are not everybody has access to, right? Like foreign brands, or
like everywhere in the world. Everybody wants
everywhere in the world. Exactly, right? Okay. So the second important takeaway from the release is that we have now forged relationships with 55,000 influencers in China. Those 55,000 influencers have about 120 million followers. And guess what? those followers are basically just watching those shows, and they're waiting for those influencers to tell them what great products are new, whatever. Just they're there to buy. Like, I mean, when they go on these shows, Jack, they're looking for product. They're not basically just going on the shows like, to be entertained. These are shows basically to sell product, right? So all of a sudden now we have 120 million potential consumers who are waiting to be told what to buy. Now, here's the second important takeaway, right? So these influencers, we've already had conversations with them. Canada is very exotic. The US is very exotic to China, right? So we have brands here in Canada. By the way, just to give you an example, a couple of years ago, our partners in China came for a visit, right? They came to Canada, and for some of them, it was their first time, like, traveling to traveling to Canada, excuse me, right? So we took them shopping downtown Montreal, and they're like, oh wow, like, I mean, all these. So they basically they bought. I don't want to say they bought the whole, like, city, but retail. I mean, they bought so many brands or whatever. Just one brand in particular called Arc'teryx. They're based out of Vancouver. They make jackets, clothing, or whatever. They loaded up on this brand. They brought it back to China, and people were just like, "Oh my goodness, where did you find this? How can I get it?" And their friends were basically just like, "Wow, like, I mean, this is an amazing brand. How can I?" So what we're looking to do, right? We're looking to approach Canadian brands now in clothing, cosmetics, ice wine. Another thing that's very hot is Aboriginal art. So there are a number of things that are typically Canadian, right, that we can now bring to China and sell through those influencers. And we can do that for US, we can do that for Europe, we can do that for retailers all over the world, essentially. So that's the second important key takeaway from this news release, is now we have this gateway that we're providing to retailers all over the world and to the Chinese market using those influencers, which is the way of selling in China right now, as we speak.
So I think there's a couple things. One is really essentially Peak becomes it's not just a fintech company, it's really a pure play on the Chinese e-commerce boom. I mean, it's a pure play, because you're financing. This is like Warren Buffett. That's how Warren Buffett looks at companies. They have a gross profit. It's like a toll bridge. You're collecting.
Exactly right. Like, I mean, we always talked about Peak being that bridge or that gateway to the Chinese market, right?
Toll bridge.
What's that? Toll bridge, right? We take a small fee, for allowing passage, right, to China, which is fine, right? So, but now we're demonstrating, Jack, that we have that ability, right? So it's not just like, okay, Peak is a company that's operating in China with these operating subsidiaries, but now what we're demonstrating is that, we're not just operating in China, but we have that ability now to give others access to the Chinese market. And as I mentioned before, right?
So you're going beyond fintech. Now you're actually getting into.
No, wait. It is fintech. I'll talk about the analytics part, okay, in a minute, because that's also important. The analytics
partnerships, getting the brands in. That's like a value add.
Yes, that's a value add. But you see, one of the reasons why it's going to be easier for those retailers to sell through the connections that we're providing in China is because we're going to be able to fund the influencers, right, in China, right? So those influencers, for instance, right? So those retailers will say, okay, you know what? This sounds great, but you know what? I'm going to need a deposit or whatever and stuff like that. I'm not going to basically just ship product over there in China, right? So you influencer, you need to place an order for me, like with me, you need to place an order for, I don't know, like 30% of the merchandise that you want to sell, to show me that you're serious or whatever and stuff like that. We're going to be able to finance that influencer over there. You understand? We're utilizing our platform to facilitate transactions. So that's the fintech aspect of things. But now on the other side of the equation, right, the retailers and the brands that are outside of China, we can tell them, hey, you know what? We're giving you access to this market. there's a fee for that. We're providing a service, and we will have the ability now to generate revenue outside of China, not just in China. So that's the second important takeaway that people should understand from the news release that was issued on Tuesday.
Okay, no, it's a tremendous opportunity. But in this, okay, so this is the new thing that you're doing, and of course you have the recently announced partnerships, with the distributors and everything else. How can you give us an update? Like what's happening? What kind of progress are you making there? I know you had an announcement just a few weeks ago where you had some some revenues that came in from just like the first kind of the first group.
Right. Yeah. You know what? Like, I mean, there was a lot of excitement generated with those announcements that we made with the distributors, and people are asking the question, well, are there going to be more deals like that? Are there going to be more relationships between Peak and distributors in China? I mean, the answer to that is absolutely. Like, I mean, why wouldn't there be? Like, I mean, there are more than just 2 distributors in China, right? Like, I mean, there are thousands of distributors in the country. Now, what we're doing is when we sign, okay, let's go back to the BDC deal, right? So that was a consumer consumer electronics products distributor that we first signed with, right? So that distributor's got an entire system, right? So they had a system where their clients would place orders, and they had visibility into their clients' transactions, right? So it's a fairly complex system, and in order for us to qualify their clients, we needed to have access to all of the information that they had on their clients and their clients' information as well, right? So we needed to integrate that system into the Kubler Lending Hub, right? So there's some IT work to be done. We're just about done, by the way, with the integration work, okay? But one of the things that we cannot do right now, because we're a growing company. We're still a fairly small company. We have limited resources in terms of our tech team, development team, and so on and so forth, right? So it wouldn't be feasible for us right now, Jack, as we speak today, to try to integrate 100 distributors, 100 distributor systems into the lending hub. It just doesn't work that way. Now, think about the value proposition 1 second for the distributors, right? So we go to a distributor, we say, okay, you know what? Right now, you're not offering credit financing to your clients. That's limiting your client's ability to purchase product from you, right? So we say, okay, you do a deal with us, you sign a deal with us, we're bringing the Kubler Lending Hub to your operations. You integrate your systems to ours. We have access to your data. All of a sudden now, all of your clients are able to qualify for funding from all of the banks and lending institutions that are part of this lending hub. So the bottom line for you, Mr. Distributor, is guess what? You're going to increase your sales. So the downside for the distributor is nil. There is no downside. So for us to approach other distributors to make a deal with them, it's a no-brainer. Okay. So in fact, we have distributors right now that have approached us, right? But we're not taking anybody on right now until we do the deal. We finish the integration with BDC. We have BJM also, which is a different type of distributor. It's a little bit less complicated, that deal. So we're looking to implement different types of distributors with different types of systems right now. So once we have that down, okay, to a science, we know how to do it, everything works perfectly, then we're going to turn on the valves and start bringing on more distributors. The only thing that we're looking to do before the end of this year is we talked about the distributors. So we're kind of like piloting 2 distributors right now. We're looking to do a deal. It's no secret, right? So we're looking to do a deal with a portal, an e-commerce portal. So that's the different types of system, right? So we will need to work with a different level of systems, right? So if we do a deal with JD.com or with Tmall, Pinduoduo, the largest e-commerce portals, we will have to adapt our system differently, right? So that's the third approach, the third line, if you will, of online e-commerce distributors, whatever you want to call it, that we want to test. Once we do that, then we're gonna know how to integrate everything, and then we're gonna see us turn on the valves and bring on a large number of distributors to the platform.
Okay, Johnson, I think I didn't even bring up the recent quarterlies. You had some tremendous numbers
Yeah, we did discuss the quarterlies. We had an investor call where we took questions.
Well, on our platform, you haven't yet. This is your first.
Well, I mean, unless you have specific questions, I don't know if there are questions from the audience, but we'll certainly take any questions if they have questions regarding.
But basically, you're on track now. So I mean, there were really impressive numbers. So I mean, you're on track to do what's the run rate right now? What's where you at right now?
Well, we did what, 15 million in the third quarter. So we had forecasted 40 million by the end of the year. Right now,
so you're ahead, basically.
Yes, yeah, we're ahead. Like I mean, everybody knows that we will beat the $40 million forecast for this year, but we're still waiting to have visibility into some of the transactions that I just mentioned, the BDC deal, the BJM deal, the impact that this online, not online, but this
live streamers, the influencers,
the live streaming, the influencers. So as you can see, like, I mean, there are so many things happening right now. So when we tell people we need to wait until we bring out new guidance, that's why there are so many things right now, and we're not done. Like, I mean, we just started the month of December, right? So we are right now, Jack, in full-fledged business development mode. So yes, there will be more announcements between now and the end of this year. So at the end of the year, we will assess where we are, and then we're going to be in a position to provide guidance. But going back to the distributor deal, though, Jack, one thing I want to mention is that it's all about data, right? Everything that we're doing is about data. So the influencers, right? In order for them to have access to credit through our platform, it's not like a blank check, right? So we need visibility into their operations. We need visibility into their operations as well. So we're accumulating a massive amount of data. Everybody that we bring on to the Lending Hub has to contribute their data, right? So as I mentioned before, the integration work that is taking place for the BDC deal is extremely important. It's all about the data. So we don't basically just, okay, you know what, you come on and we give you, or bankers or financial institutions basically just give you money. No, you have to qualify. So that means we have to have access to the data. We have to analyze the data, or analytics or artificial intelligence engine has to do its job, and more. That's going to be important for Peak. So you can look at Peak, you can expect Peak to invest more and more in analytics and artificial intelligence. The more data we have, the better we are at predicting defaults, the better we are at qualifying businesses for funding, and the better information we have to benefit all of our partners. And I'm talking the financial institutions, I'm talking the retailers, I'm talking every other company that we want to partner with us. The importance of data, Jack, cannot be stressed enough.
Oh yeah, I mean, essentially, you're becoming like an Amazon.
I was just gonna say, companies like Amazon, right? So Amazon started out, right? They started out selling books, innocently enough, right? So they were selling books, but what they were doing was they were recording, a lot of data points, right, on people coming onto the site. What were they buying? Where were they going? That kind of. So we are essentially doing the same thing right now
through the influencers, and because what's amazing is
it's not just.
You have this. You're basically like an Amazon now, because you're going to see exactly what these influencers are, what they're selling, how quick they're selling, which products. I mean. And that you can put more products through. I mean, it's an amazing opportunity.
Jack, that's the quiet part of Peak Fintech Group, right? So people.
Did I just reveal a big secret?
Well, it's not a big secret. We've talked about it, but people because what they see right now, right? What they see right now is us facilitating transactions, right? Financial transactions, but they don't see the importance of the data, all of the data that allows us to qualify these people for funding. And as you mentioned, it's not just okay, does the small business qualify for funding? But now we have access to purchasing patterns, we have access to retail patterns, all kinds of valuable information, Jack, that we're going to be able, that's why I keep telling people, PKK is, yes, we're a fintech company, but we are very much an analytics and AI company. So right now, we're not, it doesn't appear like we're doing anything with the information, with the data that we're collecting, but we are. And eventually it will become evident to people how important that data is.
Okay. Well, that's again, whenever the big data is always now that is value in these companies. I mean, that could be worth more than everything you have now. I mean, that data is.
To be honest with you, I've told that to I've told that to some of our investors. I really believe that the data will have more value than the transactions that we're facilitating, right? So people are trying to estimate Peak's revenue, and that's fine, right? So they're trying to estimate Peak's revenue right now by making calculations. They're taking their calculators, okay, 1,000 or 200,000, 300,000 small businesses. They are selling for X amount of money per year. Peak is getting 1-2% or whatever. They're trying to estimate our revenues that way, which is fine for now. But I really believe that over time, we will make more money from the data than we are making right now from facilitating the transactions with the platform.
Yeah, just like I had another company which is a very completely different business model, different market, but again, the data is a big part of their business, and I kind of like to use the analogy that essentially what you have, it's almost like you have a cattle ranch in Texas, right? You're buying this cattle ranch, but underneath the cattle ranch, there's like 2 billion barrels of oil. So, you're paying for the thing, but you're getting the real money comes from the oil that you get, as long as you get the mineral rights as part of the deal. That's where you're going to make money. But in the meanwhile, you're making money on the cattle, selling the steak.
Right, exactly, right. Yeah. So the revenue that we're generating right now is call it the first phase of
it's the cattle ranch business right now.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And when is the oil gushers? When are we going to hit that big gusher that
like I said, Jack, I'll give a hint right on your show, just for your audience, right? So I'll give a hint on your show. Expect us over the next weeks, months. Expect to hear more about investments in AI coming from Peak. So that's a hint. That's all I'm going to say right now. So certainly, we are, we're always working hard, and behind the scenes. So we have the data, we know how valuable it is, and there will be more hints in the coming weeks, months, in terms of where we're going to go with this data.
Okay, I mean, I think that it'll probably show up in your numbers maybe in about 6 to 9 months.
Definitely, most definitely, yes.
Let's jump into some audience questions, because this is what this is really about. I mean, we're here to, because this is okay. So let's go into first question. What's the estimated average loan you are facilitating through these through the influencer channel?
Okay, that's a good question. It's roughly when you take the cost of the cost of producing the shows and the deposits, we estimate it will be between $30,000 to $50,000.
Okay.
Canadian dollars.
Sean is asking, will Peak do the financing, or will it be a lending partner that people?
No, we don't do the financing. No, these are lending opportunities that we make available to the banks and the lending institutions that are part of the lending hub.
I think, Johnson, I think it's important to make this point, because this is kind of what is the good thing, is that you're not making loans, that you have partners, so there's multiple institutions involved, which avoids the problem that I think
that's the beauty. That's the beauty of the lending. Yeah, that's the beauty of the lending hub, right? So because there are so many different types of lending institutions there, right? They all have their own lending criteria, right? So the chances of somebody signing up on the lending hub to get a loan or credit is much better than if they had gone on their own to approach a bank or any single financial institution, right? So we have, I think we have over, I'm losing count right now, but we have over 50 financial institutions right now that are part of the lending hub.
Okay. We got Hemi's here. He's asking, could you potentially partner with somebody like Shopify?
Oh, good gosh. Yeah, obviously, we would love to partner with Shopify, but you know what? Based on the announcement that we had on Tuesday, where Shopify, right? They're the retail kings of Canada, or I think they do business in the US as well. Yeah, so Shopify would be like a nice partner with us. So we're not talking to Shopify or anything like that, but certainly you can see where there could be some synergies between what we're doing and what they're doing.
Okay, so Anthony's asking, with Peak having bigger wins recently with larger companies, has there been a shift from smaller business partnerships to prioritizing larger business deals?
Can you repeat the question?
I guess he's asking, like, are you focusing on big partnerships instead of smaller? Like, I guess where is?
Oh, okay. No, I get it now. No. Listen, we are always for the little guys, right? So we're trying to help the little guys get access to funding. Those are the guys that have the most difficulty, and our focus is always going to be on them. So one of the reasons why Ant Financial has been so successful, despite the pause on their IPO, but I think I've mentioned this before on a previous appearance, Jack. The reason why they're called Ant is because they're helping the little guys, right? So there are many little guys in China. That's where the opportunity is, and that will always remain our focus. Yes, we started out doing on the higher end of the supply chain, working our way down, like helping distributors, and now more and more retailers. But our focus is always going to be on small retailers, micro businesses, and entrepreneurs.
Okay. Sean's asking, any plan for partnership with JD?
Potential partnership with customer purchasing
electronics on JD.
I'm not sure I understand. Any plan for a potential partnership with end customer?
I guess customers buying electronics in JD, or JD is a selling platform, though, right?
JD, yeah, JD is
means.
Okay, JD is like kind of like Amazon. They are I think the second largest e-commerce portal, the second or third largest e-commerce portal in all of China. But just like Amazon, they sell their own products, right? So they are the portal and also a retailer. So there are a number of things that could be done with JD, and we'll see what happens. But obviously, we would love to be able to work with them.
Okay, I guess a related question. Mike is asking, has Peak had any talks regarding possible agreements with any of the big three, I guess, e-commerce platforms?
Okay, yeah, I've mentioned those three. What was the question? If we had any talks?
Yeah, regarding possible agreements with any of the big three. Like, are you making deals with like an Alibaba?
You know what? Like, I'd rather not comment on that right now. It's it's not something I can comment on for the moment, Jack, unfortunately.
Okay. Any uplisting plans? A bunch of people are asking about NASDAQ, or what's kind of the plans?
Oh yes. Before we get on the NASDAQ, there have been some questions about new regulations that were recently passed. I think some people are concerned about our ability to, because we mentioned in the past that we wanted to go on NASDAQ. And I know that some people are concerned about our ability to go on NASDAQ because of new regulations that were passed in the US affecting Chinese companies that are listed in the US. So I want to address that first. Yes, Chinese companies apparently are not required, or were not required, to file audited financial statements in the US, right? And give access to their audited financial statements to the Securities and Exchange Commission on any of the large exchanges for whatever reason. But that has now changed, right? So I think that the Congress has passed new regulations making it mandatory for those companies, those Chinese companies, to give access to their audited statements in the US. Now, one thing I want to make clear is you have companies such as JD.com, Alibaba, that are Chinese companies that are listed on NASDAQ and other US exchanges. Peak is not a Chinese company. It's very important for people to understand that. Peak is a Canadian company. So we are regulated by Canadian regulators, and we already comply with all of the disclosure and regulation requirements set by the Securities and Exchange Commission. As we speak today, if you go on the OTC website, PKKFF, you look at disclosure documents, you're going to find our audited financial statements. So there are no plans for Peak not to continue to abide by the Canadian and US securities regulations, because we are a Canadian company with operations in China, not a Chinese company listed on a US or Canadian exchange. So there's a big difference. So there are no issues, by the way. So it's a non-issue for us to be listed on the NASDAQ. That being said, we have started the process to prepare the documentation. We've looked at all of the requirements to list on the NASDAQ, and there's some paperwork to be done, and we're in the process of doing that paperwork right now.
Okay. Now, I think I'm seeing a lot of comments. People are starting to understand the value of the data aspect of what you're doing. I think Hammy is saying, yeah, Amazon was selling books, but the data is, okay, so they're comparing you to Amazon, a mini Amazon, a Chinese Amazon, but you're going in through the back door, you're coming in through the financing door, which is better.
Right. Regardless of how you have access to that information, right? Like, I mean, Amazon started by selling books, right? And Amazon does a lot of things right now. Like, I mean, they know everything about everybody. Don't ask me how. And you have companies like Facebook as well. Facebook has a lot of information on people. So these are companies, right? Although they're providing a service at the surface, right? So Amazon is selling you product or whatever, but really what makes the strength of those companies is really the intelligence, right? The AI that they have, the algorithms, right? So they have information, and their ability basically to utilize that information for a variety of purposes is what makes those companies what they are. By the same token, what people see right now of PKK at the surface, of Peak at the surface, is they see a company facilitating transactions between small businesses and financial institutions, right? But what they don't see is all of the data aspects, right? So all of these things, for them to happen, we need to have access to data. To be clear here, I mean, this information is totally encrypted. It's anonymized. You know, like, you know, if people were to break into our servers or whatever, they wouldn't be able to make sense of the information. So that's number one. So we give the required comfort level to our partners so that they understand that their information will not be compromised. But absolutely, we are an analytics and AI company at the core, right? So we are a fintech. Yeah, we're three things. We're a fintech company because we're facilitating financial transactions, but at the core of Peak, we are an analytics and AI company.
So we got an interesting,
and that will become more and more apparent.
Okay, so we got an interesting comment from Hammy saying that the data can scale at 100 times whatever you're doing now.
Well, I'm not going to put any metrics on it, whatever, but again, internally, we all know at Peak that the data has more value than anything that we're doing right now.
Okay. Dan is asking, where do you see Peak 5 years from now? 5 years is like a lifetime.
It is.
A year from now. Let's 2 years. Let's 2 years. The 5 years is like in the tech world.
Well, call it 2 to 5 years. 2 to 5 years. I think what you can expect to see within 2 to 5 years, is that you will see Peak be recognized more as an AI company. Right now, we are a fintech company, again, because of what we're doing at the surface. But I think 2 to 5 years from now, I think Peak will be recognized as an AI company, an analytics company, more than a fintech.
So I guess Adam is asking, he has this comment before, but when will you start monetizing the data we're talking about?
Certainly within the next 2 years.
Okay, so I mean, yeah, so this is coming up. So we got let's see here, Container Guys. This guy's very bullish. He keeps saying it's going to be $100. So let's.
What's that? What is that? Can you put that?
His name is Container Guys. That's his name.
You know what? I like his thinking though. No, like, I mean, we're not here to obviously talk about the stock price or anything like that. So no, like, we're going to continue to do what we're doing, build a fundamentally sound company, and reward our shareholders and our investors.
Oh, Mike, when do you launch the is this launched already? When do you launch this?
The influencer campaign. When do you launch it? It's actually launched. Like, I mean, we signed the agreement with Grupo Coin. In fact, our people, our guys were attending, I think, one of the first shows based on that agreement. We will post some pictures on our Twitter or Facebook probably in the next couple of days, just to give people a glimpse. I think it'll be fun for investors and shareholders, basically, to get a glimpse into how these shows come about. So we have some pictures that were sent to me last night while the shows were going on. We'll post those on our social media pages for people to see.
Okay, so yeah, a couple of people have actually asked this. So I'm popping this up. So can you? I guess this guy's asking, how will you take the profits out of China?
Okay, you know what? We get that a lot. In China, if you're a foreign entity operating in the country, there are certain rules and regulations that you need to follow, and there are processes that the government has put into place for you to bring profits outside of the country. So it's really like a non-issue. It's a non-issue for us. We haven't had any profits to take out of the country, but certainly we expect to be profitable at some point in 2021. So we've started the process to do the paperwork and to put the mechanisms in place to be able to take profits out of the country at some point in 2021. So we expect to be able to do that without any issues.
Okay, Johnson, right now the focus is on China. I think this question is about, are you investing in Southeast Asia? Like SEA is a big player there. Or do you have any plans to enter Southeast Asia?
Yeah, this is something that we addressed early on as well. We will eventually make our way, I believe, to into Southeast Asia. But right now, China is such a huge market, right? So we want to make sure we continue to exploit the opportunities that we have in China. It is a humongous market. As you can see, I mean, there are new verticals popping up left, right, and center. There are different kinds of businesses, different types of ways in which we can expand our services in China. It's a country of 1.3 billion people, over 100 million small businesses. So there's a lot of work left to be done in China before we expand our services. But certainly what we're doing in China can be replicated in other parts of other parts of the world, and certainly Southeast Asia is a market that we will eventually get into, but it's not for this year or next year.
Okay, Johnson, we're running out of time. We're going to go to a few more questions. Matt is asking, have you had any resistance or pushback from Chinese companies integrating or contributing their data into your system?
Absolutely none. Zero whatsoever. China is different when it comes to privacy and access to information. There's been no hesitation from the companies that we've been doing business with. We also give them the assurance that the information that we gather is totally anonymized. It's aggregated. So there's nothing basically that would identify a single company per se. So everybody's really comfortable with everything that we've been doing so far in China.
Okay. I'm not sure if I asked, but okay. So I guess Sarfraz is asking, I think the question is, what kind of revenue potential do you see just from the influencer channel, that new channel alone? What kind of
okay, you know what? Like just okay, he's talking about the potential, right? So we try to give some metrics in the press release. So we have like 55,000 influencers right now. The influencers to put on a show cost them $1,000 to $10,000, and for each show we could be financing $30,000 to $50,000. So I think we said that they put on 250 shows. The numbers just get like ridiculous in terms of what the potential size would be, right? So it's really just a matter of systematically working with these influencers and seeing what the reality is. So the potential is, there's huge potential there. We're talking in the billions of dollars, but realistically, what can we expect from this channel over the next 6 to 12 months? Again, we will have to do a few transactions and to have a better understanding to be able to estimate what we can expect from this deal.
I think it's important to clarify that, for example, I think some of these influencers, like you mentioned, 200 shows, basically, if somebody is selling, they're an influencer selling, shoes, right? I mean, they're doing, obviously it's like a store, right? And you're doing a show on shoes on Monday, then you have another show on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Meanwhile, you got to pay for those products, right? So you might have 3 shows a day. I mean, it's the sky is really the limit, right? So
yes, actually, like, you know what? Some of those influencers put on more than a show a day. It's a full-time job.
It's a QVC, basically. Yeah, it's like QVC.
Yeah, exactly. It is their business.
Yeah,
it's a full-time job. Now, we're so excited, honestly, about this new deal because we spoke to the influencers, right? So again, Canada, cosmetics, clothing. It's what's the word I'm looking for? They don't have it there in China, right? So there's a novelty effect, right? If you have an influencer, I have to read about just one thing. Okay, there's one particular product that they inquired about. I don't know. It's Bite Beauty. I don't know how they know about it, but Bite Beauty is a brand of cosmetics in Canada, and they make organic grade lip products. I don't know what that means, but apparently that's something that would be hot in China, So these are the kinds of things, right, that we can help bring to the country. So that particular brand, obviously, I mean, I don't know if they do business right now in China, but we could help them do business in China through our network of influencers. So, and the influencers are already excited. That's the thing, Jack. They're excited about some of the products that they could have access to through us, because we're a Canadian company.
I think what happened was, from what I read in recently when this thing started becoming big, it's been, this live streaming thing has been big in China, but it came to kind of the attention of sort of the media in the US because once the COVID thing happened, all the businesses, all the stores in China were shut down. Yeah. So, and they did an article about this lady who was actually, literally, she was selling shoes, right? So people couldn't come into her store. So she was basically doing a show from her home and selling shoes, and she could interact with the audience. Like I'm interacting with you, right? She could say, yeah. Oh, this is, and somebody would, I guess they can connect and they say, oh, this shoe, and then she would say, oh, you would look great in this shoe because you bought the other one. And it's a very interactive, yeah. It's social, basically.
Exactly.
And it's COVID proof. It's actually, so this is a great thing.
Just to finish, I know we're well over time here, but just to bring that home a little bit. Pinduoduo, right? I've mentioned Pinduoduo several times. And Pinduoduo is, I think now they are the second largest e-commerce portal in all of China. And Pinduoduo, when Alibaba came out with Taobao and Tmall, it was like, wow, people thought, okay, you know what? They've cornered the market. No other e-commerce portal would be successful. JD came onto the scene and was very successful. Pinduoduo came on even later. And they were like, okay, what are they going to do basically to take clients away from, from Alibaba, Tmall, and from JD.com? Pinduoduo came in and they were interactive. The thing that you just mentioned right now, it's not just selling on online, right? But it's an interactive platform. If you want to buy something, right? So you can interact with the merchant. The merchant can tell you.
That's the whole part. They have a conversation.
That's the thing. Like it's an interactive. So they brought that interactivity, right, to online selling, and they just skyrocketed. And this is what those influencers are doing on a smaller scale, kind of like on a one-to-one scale. So this has huge potential, Jack. Huge potential.
It's kind of like this channel, except they actually the audience can actually get connect with video and they can talk to you and instead of the chat.
It's social media. It's social media.
Like, I mean, yeah. So, but they have it there. It works on their platform. Okay, so Johnson, we're running out of time. We've got to get you back soon. I want to ask the last question, which we always ask. Same question, it never changes. Top 3 reasons why investors. Let me ask the first question. One is, what's the pipeline of news? What can we expect in the next couple of weeks? And then my question, top 3 reasons to own the stock today.
Okay. As far as the news flow is concerned, obviously, there's a reason why we're not putting out guidance, right? People are always asking me, okay, why? Where's the guidance? The reason why we're not doing that is because obviously there are more, we're working on more deals, right? So I mean, it's no secret. So people can expect more deals to be announced between now and the end of the year. That's number one. So that answers the pipeline need. I'm not going to get into the specifics of the deals, obviously, until they're announced. But yes, people can expect more announcements with partnerships or whatever and stuff like that to be done between now and the end of the year. And to answer your other question about the top 3 reasons, it hasn't changed. It's still the same, Jack. The market, China, right? The biggest market for fintech in the world. Fintech and now, well, AI, whatever you want to call it, right? So over 1.3 billion people, over 100 million small and micro businesses. So we're in the right space. The second thing is people. It takes good people, great people to build great companies. We have a fantastic team here in Canada and also in China, and we're adding to that team. So we're recruiting people from the banking sector, from the retail sector, all these different industries that are seeing our vision and they're coming to be part of the Peak Fintech group. So the team is the second thing. The third thing is we're undervalued, Jack, plain and simple. Like, I mean, this company has tremendous upside. So those are the 3 reasons I think that people should take a serious look at PKK.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, definitely stock is undervalued, based on the comps with the peer groups. So
right.
All right, Johnson, thank you for joining us once again. We're going to have you back hopefully in the next week to 10 days with some more good news. And let's get ready to meet our next presenter. Johnson, I'll see you on the next one.
All right, thanks, Jack.
Okay, let's get ready for CBDT. Here we go. Okay, we're gonna have Steve McCauley coming up right now. Okay, stand by, everybody. We're gonna bring Steve on. Steve.
Hey, good morning.
Okay, good morning. Hang on a second. Let me just get this set up here for you. Okay, there we go. All right, Steve, we got a full audience here. We got a packed house.
Excellent.
So hang on a second. Let me just, okay, we got everything. Let me pop this down over here. Okay. I think we got between YouTube and Periscope, we must have about 700 people watching you right now. So
good. We like a good audience. We like a large audience.
Yeah. So we need big news today, Steve. Don't give us like minor news. We need big things today.
You got it. Well, we've got a lot of big things on the go, most definitely. So we've got a very strong regular news cycle. We're thrilled with how our new diagnostics and medical laboratory in Dallas is performing.
Okay.
We're doing great work on finalizing due diligence and documentation on our new Canadian clinic acquisition. And so we're definitely gonna have a strong December to close the year.
Okay.
And 2021 is looking like really dynamically different and strong for us.
Okay, so let's get we're going to get the live stream started now. Okay, welcome everybody. Everybody's joining in right now to Wall Street Reporter's Next Superstock live stream. We have back with us today Empower Clinics, EPWCF over the counter, CBDT on the CSE. Steve McCauley is the CEO. And again, anybody who's new to the program, we're looking for stocks which have that 10x to 100x upside potential. We're going to find out today if CBDT is going to be our next 10 bagger. We have a very close race right now. We've had 3 so far in 2020. We want to close out the year. Steve, if you can get the stock to 75 cents by December 31st, you're going to get a prize. So with that said, let's get started. Steve, I want to kind of jump into the big news. We're going to have a lot of audience questions today because we've got a lot of people here. I think what people are interested in now is this news about the COVID testing. So you want to jump in and tell us what's going on there with the Chi clinics?
Yeah, so we closed an acquisition back in October, Chi Medical Laboratory in Dallas, Texas. So it is a high complexity CLIA and COLA certified lab. It's state-of-the-art equipment, it's pristine, and it covers a full range of testing capability, whether it's blood, hematology, toxicology. But the biggest demand right now in the lab world remains COVID-19 testing. The demand is unbelievable, and in the U.S., certainly we see the challenges in Canada with COVID-19. It's exacerbated in the United States, and we see it on the news every single day. I can tell you, just sort of operating in the U.S., that demand is for testing is unbelievable, and we're positioned to serve it. We've got the capacity today to process 4,000 COVID-19 specimens per day, and the ability to expand that by adding more machinery and even adding a third, daily shift. So we know that we can take that capacity up as we get bigger transactions that keep coming through, and our pipeline is very full right now for sure.
Okay, so what's interesting? I want to ask you about the PCR test, which is the big news. But we actually talked about this the other day. Is that people are kind of saying, oh, there's a vaccine and the COVID thing is going to go away. There's not going to be a need for testing. But in reality, and that's what I was kind of thinking, oh, okay, the COVID thing is going. But you said something very interesting, which is that it's the need for testing is going to be here for forever almost. I mean,
it's going to
be the next virus is going to be it's going to be the top of mind.
Yeah, I think, and I get this question from shareholders and followers often, and it's a bit of a misnomer. I think people think, oh, well, hey, Pfizer's coming out with a vaccine, Moderna's coming out with a vaccine, COVID is going to be gone, and then testing is going to be gone. It's completely false. First of all, vaccine and getting society globally vaccinated is going to take an extremely long period of time. Having an FDA-approved vaccine does not mean that someone is getting a needle in their arm with the actual vaccine. And it should also be understood that the concept of kind of having broad-based vaccination, you have to be somewhere, society has to be sort of above 60% of all the population needs to be vaccinated to have the impact of herd immunity. So I can tell you in Canada, as an example, it's an anecdote, the flu shots every year, in Canada, we kind of only get to about 20% of the population actually get a flu shot. And a flu shot's been around for decades. So we're going to see testing in our society in many different forms for a very long time. We work with consultants right now. We're talking to airlines, we're talking to airports, we're talking to cruise lines, we're talking to industry. And all of these different industries, public sector, private sector, can't get back to full operations unless they know that the consumer or the employee either has a vaccine and they can prove it, or they have a negative COVID test, whatever that type of COVID test will be. And operationally, what we're seeing on the ground with big industry and small industry is there's going to be a need for all the different types of testing protocols depending on the operational focus that's out there. And so having the lab has really put us right in the middle of meeting that demand. And more importantly, our lab are doing a tremendous job on the R&D side, developing new testing protocols, and in some cases that are proprietary to us.
Okay, so which is the PCR test now?
Well, PCR is the kind of gold standard for the industry overall. So everybody would be familiar with either the nasal swab or the throat swab that we see take place for sort of traditional COVID-19 testing. That specimen is collected and then sent to a lab, a certified lab, for processing. So we've been involved in doing PCR tests from the beginning. But tests are evolving. So there's PCR tests, there are rapid tests, so there are rapid antibody tests, and there are now rapid antigen tests, all necessary to help speed up the detection, because there's a bottleneck in labs right now because there's so many specimens being collected each day and sent to labs. The turnaround time has become a problem simply because there's more demand than there is capacity in many parts of the United States and even in Canada. So PCR tests are the gold standard. They're the most accurate. They're the most specific. And then you have your rapid tests. The antibody test is testing to see if you have had COVID-19, because once you do have it, your body builds up antibodies. So the test is looking for certain proteins that identify that those antibodies exist. So it's detecting the fact that you previously had COVID and have those antibodies. But all of the tests are going to be utilized in different ways in different industries going forward. And it's been important for us to be involved in these new forms of tests.
But you're doing what? You're doing saliva tests now, right?
We are. So we actually come to market in about a week's time, where we actually have our independent molecular scientists in our lab this week doing validations, because you, as a certified lab, you have to validate your processing on the equipment that you have, and you have to get an independent report. So the saliva tests are going to be crucially important to the market going forward. Having a nasal swab or having a throat swab once is uncomfortable, but imagine when you have multiple industries. Let's take film and television as a perfect example. The Screen Actors Guild, the union governing film and television productions in the United States, requires the productions and everybody involved to get tested 3 times per week. And it has to be a PCR test. They will not allow rapid tests as part of their policies. So you imagine if you're on set for a month, 2 months, 4 months, and you're getting a nasal swab 3 times per week. There's a lot of discomfort, and we're hearing that from people in the industry.
So yeah, nobody wants to get something, you know.
No, not at all. So the new saliva tests are a lot less invasive. They're still PCR tests. So there's a couple kinds that we have. The first one is it's kind of referred to as a sort of a swish and spit. So you're getting saliva and you're spitting into a tube, and that tube is being sent off to the lab. It's still processed as a PCR test, so it's the most accurate. There's another version that's coming to market, which is a mouth rinse. And a similar sort of thing, you're rinsing a fluid around in your mouth for 60 seconds, and through a straw, putting that into a tube, and it is sent off for processing. There's one key important thing to understand about both these types of tests. Both of these tests are now intended to be home-based, delivered to a house. You don't need a specialized med tech in order to take the specimen. So as an example, parents could order it to test their children if they wanted to. Businesses could order supply for their employees, and the employees could self-test and then submit the specimen to the lab for processing. A lot less invasive, but more importantly, it's easier to access than the current format.
Yeah, that's a real game changer, because I mean the accessibility. It's like, you know, anybody can do it. You don't need to, you know, go see, you know, I don't know, a nurse or whoever sticks a thing up your nose.
Well, that's exactly it. And we do specimen collection in our clinics, particularly in the state of Arizona. But you know, we're clinic operators. We have physicians, we have med techs, we have nurse practitioners who have the capability to actually take the specimens. But that ultimately does not help the hundreds of millions of people and the it's not even hundreds of millions, billions of tests that are going to have to be accessible going forward into 2021, 22, and beyond.
Okay, so one of the big takeaways is that there's going to be a huge demand for testing. Now you have the saliva test. Now this is going to be available in the market in the next few weeks. Basically, you're going to bring.
Oh no, less than that. So the first version of our saliva test, the Kai saliva test, is going to be. We're going to start selling and marketing that test on December 15th. So we're finishing up the medical provisioning, the scientific provisioning right now in our lab. That provisioning finishes at the end of this week, and then we are going to be starting to make available that version of the test the following week. So right now we're saying December 15th is our target to start selling that version of the saliva test.
Okay, and that's going to okay. So in terms of the revenue potential. Is this something that's going to be available nationwide, in other words, that basically anybody can get the test, they ship it to Kai, and
Yeah.
So in other words, you'll have a national or international footprint essentially.
Well, we do. So there's a regulatory framework to consider. So these tests are FDA approved, and then we do our provisioning, and then Kai, as a certified lab, is able to use its processing techniques to process that FDA approved saliva test. So we will be available nationwide in the United States, effective immediately. We've got a new specialized landing page that's being built right now. It's not live, but that is actually www.kaitests.com. So that will be launched here in the month of December. And it's really kind of think of an e-commerce site to a certain extent. We need to make the test accessible to consumers, however they want to access it. So whether it's going to a website, whether it's in our clinics, whether it's ultimately in pharmacies around the country, these types of tests need to be made available to consumers and citizens all over the world. The U.S. market, of course, is massive for us, and then we will start to bring these into Canada also. We just helped do our first Health Canada submission on our rapid antigen test. That submission actually went in just last week. And is with Health Canada now. So we're really working on not only just the U.S. market, but the anticipation of our expanded footprint with our clinic acquisition into the Canadian market.
Okay, so let's get into some audience questions, because we're getting the obvious next question is going to be, what is the cost of the saliva test? And my question is going to be, what are your margins on that test?
Yeah, so the costs are going to be very similar to what standard PCR tests are today, which we sell our PCR tests for $125 US. Our rapid tests are sold for $65 US, and we also do combinations. So if sometimes people want to get a PCR test and they want to get a rapid test as well, because they want to potentially understand, did I have it previously and do I have the antibodies or not? So the saliva tests are going to be in and around the same price as the current PCR tests.
Okay, so very important. So I'm not a medical expert. So basically, I can take the test, the antibody test, for a couple bucks, and it'll tell me if I already have had the COVID or I have the antibodies for it.
That's correct. So, again, rapid testing it continues to play an important role and will play a more important role going forward. So the rapid antibody test and then the rapid antigen test are specifically different. So the rapid antigen tests are a form of a PCR test. It does require currently a nasal swab or a throat swab, but it goes the specimen gets mixed with a liquid called a buffer, and it goes into the little cartridge itself, and it takes about between 15 and 20 minutes to get a result. What's important about the rapid antigen test is it has the ability to detect asymptomatic people. So you may have no symptoms whatsoever, but you might already have the virus. The incubation period can be up to 5 days with the virus itself. So these rapid antigen tests can play a very important role at point of collection. So as an example, I'm a traveler and I need to get onto an airplane, but what we're seeing now is that airports, airlines, and now even countries are putting limits and rules and basically putting up borders, I guess, flying into a country or through a country if the passenger cannot produce a negative COVID result. So this is part of this new paradigm why having a vaccine is not directly correlated to testing demand. In fact, they're not correlated. So we believe that getting the lab on our books, and what we've proved to ourselves in a very short time with our new integration is that we can drive volume to the lab. We had a tremendous month in our first month of taking over. Our next month, which was November just passed, was even more, was stronger than we even expected. We just announced another 10,000 specimen transaction for a film and television production. That specimen collection starts on December 7th. It's 10,000 specimens over a 4-month period, all running back through Kai Labs. This is really solid revenue. That's a $1 million transaction right there. And so we're getting that type of demand coming our way because we have the technical and scientific capability to meet that demand. Okay.
And what's okay? Well, first I want to ask you, in terms of the competitive landscape, like what is, a lot of people are getting into testing now, or they are in doing these COVID tests. What is the competition in terms of the saliva test, in terms of the other thing, from a cost perspective and everything else?
So to address the question over competition, we are seeing far greater demand than lab capacity that's out there. It's resulting in delays in turnaround time for processing. You want to be able to get this result back to the consumer now, within 24 hours of receiving the specimen. Unfortunately, we're seeing many situations where labs are just at their maximum capacity and they simply can't get the turnaround time. So from a competitive standpoint, we're really positioned nicely in the landscape that we're in to be, fortunate to have kind of more demand than can be met. We have the ability with the new lab. We still have extra capacity, but one of the key differences that I'm focused on is being involved in the latest technology when it comes to testing protocols, and that's why the 2 versions of the saliva tests are so important for us as Kai Medical to be validated on, to have our own version, and we think that that's going to drive incredible volume through to Kai in the months and years ahead.
Okay, so is anybody else doing a saliva test? Like what percent, or what?
Yeah, so saliva tests are certainly out there. Like as an example, in Canada, they're doing some pilots with children in schools, and it's invasive to attempt to put a swab quite deep in the nasal or throat with young children. So in Canada, they're testing different saliva applications as well. We definitely will see other saliva tests coming to market, but I can tell your audience that we're definitely an early adopter, and for us to be fully validated before we come out of 2020 for 2 different versions of saliva tests will be very important for our volume and demand going into 2021.
Okay, and so it seems like the film and television business, that's like a big customer usually. You have a deal with Disney, I think.
Well, no, we have different. We don't. The relationship that we have is not a direct relationship with say Disney per se, but they have productions that we have processed specimens for. We have a variety of studios and a variety of productions across the country. To your point, it's a market that we're targeting. As I was saying earlier about Screen Actors Guild, they created policy for film and television productions around the world, whereby they said, well, you can go back to work, you can start your production again, but here are the guidelines related to COVID. And they create zones, zone A, zone B, zone C. And as you get further from the outside going to the middle, which is actually on-set shooting, you have to clear your COVID result through each one of those steps. Once you're on set, no matter who you are, whether you're an extra, you're with the production, you're behind the camera, you're in front of the camera, in the US, you have to get tested 3 times per week. So the industry has been on hold, on a big hiatus for more than 6 months. There's a backlog of productions, and you're talking about billions of dollars of economic input here. And in order for them to get back to work, they have to have COVID protocols. A vaccine right now coming to market does not change what the Screen Actors Guild policies will be. And so it's an industry that we know, because of the frequency of specimen requirements, it's a great one for us to focus on. We just happen to be nicely positioned and serving that segment right now.
Okay, so Subhan is asking of COVID detection results. How fast is your turnaround compared to other competitors in the market?
Yeah, so we're definitely holding the KPI of turnaround time at within 24 hours of receiving the specimen. We do have some same day turnaround as well. So as an example, if specimens arrive to us earlier in the day, we have the ability to process and get the result loaded into our IT systems and securely delivered to the individual, whose specimen that we've collected. But generally speaking, it's going to be within the 24-hour time frame. We're holding up to that KPI right now very comfortably.
Okay, so right now, I guess the big issue is, okay, so there's a massive demand. I guess the question is the capacity, right? So what's your capacity right now
Sure.
for these tests?
So we have the capacity today on the way our current shifts work to process 4,000 PCR tests per day. I'm starting to get a lot of questions about, well, if you get larger contracts, if you're playing on a national scale, can you add capacity? And the short answer is yes. So we have the ability to run to a third shift if we wanted to. We have the space in our state-of-the-art lab to add additional testing equipment. So I would simply purchase another piece of equipment that is specified to run the PCR specimen collection and analysis, and we would then double our capacity by adding another machine. We are actively looking at other markets now for additional labs in anticipation of having coverage in different time zones. So, Dallas, Texas is on Central Time Zone. Our lab is located right in the heart of the medical district in Dallas. So being in Central Time Zone is very accessible for transport in to our lab. But we anticipate that we may need to have other labs in West Coast, East Coast type locations to start to serve some of the larger capacity that's coming, particularly because of the saliva test that we're bringing to market.
Okay, so in terms of, I guess, if maybe can you do the math for us? Like, what's in terms of revenue potential? What can you generate?
Well, I mean, there's a simple way to look at it. Even if you just use round numbers. So, on average, let's say we're getting about $100 US per specimen, correct? If we were at full capacity of 4,000 per day, that's 400,000 US a day at a full capacity model. So we're not at full capacity now, but we're certainly seeing record month over month demand coming in. And of course, with the efforts that we're putting out on research and development, bringing the additional tests to market, I anticipate that we're going to start to get to that capacity. And it's why we're already starting to look at capacity models for 2021. Again, by the nature of the conversations that we're having, the big industries that we're talking to, working with airlines, working with cruise lines, working with tourism and hospitality, because those industries have to get back to work. People need to begin to travel again. We can't have 14-day quarantines and expect consumers to travel. And so the only way to eliminate quarantines ultimately is to have testing protocols that validate that the consumer, in fact, is COVID-19 negative. I think of it like this. I think that the negative COVID report is going to be as valuable as our passport and our boarding pass going forward.
Yeah. So I just did the math. So basically, you can do 12 million a month in revenues.
If you, if you are on full capacity and you're, we process specimens 7 days a week right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't take weekends off anymore. It just simply is not an option for us. We have to be available when the consumer demand is there, and it's there. So, I mean, technically, Jack, yeah, you're right. If all things were humming along perfectly, that's the type of capacity model that we're talking about right now.
Okay, so when will things be humming along perfectly so we can get to 12 million a month revenue?
Well, I tell you what the key is. The key is to get our new saliva test to market. The key is to get our new KaiTest.com up and live. Our call centers are busy outbound. I've added additional sales and marketing people on the street right now to help talk to industries on a local and regional and national basis. And so we're simply, just ramping up kind of all the channels that you need, because there's a sales and marketing component. People have to be aware that we have the ability, that we have a high complexity lab that can process, the capacity that we have, and we have to market and talk about the new versions of the tests that are out there. So we're doing all of that work right now. I've got graphic designers and web designers working on landing pages and the new marketing sites. We've got call centers, we've got sales and marketing folks, and of course we have scientists and lab techs who are working so hard every single day to meet the turnaround times.
Okay, so Steve, so the lab business, though, and we spent a lot of time on this, but this is just one facet of, Empower. This is one facet. So what's, anybody that's kind of joining right now, any new people, can you give us a snapshot of what the whole picture of what Empower Clinics does, what's the big opportunity that they're really you're after? Because it's way beyond, the testing business.
Yeah, I mean, the testing aspect is one part of it for sure right now. But, our vision for ourselves, we see ourselves as an integrated healthcare company. And, we want to, meet patients where they are and when their need is there. So what that means to us is we will continue to be a clinic business. We will continue to roll up clinics and have more reach. Right now, our focus point is what we refer to as paramedical services. Some companies call it allied health, and that is, think of pain management, physiotherapy, chiropractic, acupuncture, podiatry services, osteopathic services, naturopathic services. So our clinics provide those types of services today. And we're starting to move ourselves closer to primary care and actually connecting more, like really joining at the hip with primary care centers. And we'll have a lot more announcements like that as it relates to our new Canadian acquisition that's just pending closing right now. We've finished due diligence on that transaction. We're doing the final legal work at the moment on documentation. So there'll be some announcements coming relatively soon on that, but it'll definitely be before the end of the year. I'm talking imminently. So we have a vision of being an integrated healthcare company. We need to deliver our technology. So we've had a telemedicine layer, that we've been using every single day for since I took over the company almost 2 years ago. Telemedicine for us, and ultimately technology for us, is going to play a bigger and more important role going forward. I couldn't help but listen intently to your last guest. They're in a totally different sector than we are, but something struck me as very important, and it's really about data. We are already working on artificial intelligence initiatives, figuring out how to harness the insights of the millions of data points that we have. So if you take our patient base today, so we have 165,000 patients in our database today that we serve. We close our Canadian transaction. We're going to see us very soon in 2021 have access to millions of patients. So think about the power of being able to gain valuable insights of the data of your patients, their qualifying conditions, their treatment options, the efficacy of their treatment options. Using AI, are we able to connect sort of IoT to things like our iPhones, our Apple Watches, where there's health data and health information? If we're able to actually pull that data, put it into our physicians' EMR systems, and literally with a click of a button, the doctor can actually have insight to the fitness regime or lack of fitness regime of the patient when they come in. So as an example, if I'm a patient and I have diabetes or diabetic symptoms, well, the amount of steps that I have taken over the last week, month, 6 months, and my health data is going to become a primary data point that can help guide the physician. So we're already working on technology developments and technology layers that utilize artificial intelligence and IoT to provide better data for physicians to guide the healthcare outcomes for our patients. So integrated healthcare for us is not just about having a clinic, it's about having access to data or better access to data. It's about utilizing telemedicine because perhaps the patient can't come in to see the physician, so the physician should go to the patient through telemedicine. So integrated healthcare for us is really the path where we're going. The laboratory is very important because we're meeting a certain type of demand right now. It's obviously great for cash flow and great for our revenues, but it's part of our overall healthcare system that we're developing.
Okay, so we haven't really talked about the technology aspect before. This is like a new kind of another opportunity that we're going after. Now, there was a question actually. Hang on a second about acquisition. Subban was asking. I think you were starting to talk about that.
Yeah, so that's an easy one for me. The answer is yes. So we definitely have our pending Canadian clinic acquisition that we fully anticipate closing here in the month of December, and we're very happy with the due diligence process that we went through, and I'm very optimistic about what's coming. There'll be really important news, not only with the closing of the acquisition, but what the pipeline behind that looks like. So the transaction, when we close it, will include 7 locations. Originally, when we announced it was 6, but another one has been added since that point in time. And then we'll have some very continuous and important, news about how we roll that out on a much larger scale across the Canadian market.
Okay, so you recently you had the financials came out, so it looks like there's been some pretty strong revenue growth over last year. The overall picture, you're getting closer to profitability. You got these acquisitions coming in. So what can we expect? Let's say the next 12 months in terms of with the current run rate of the company is. What is it approximately right now?
Well, again, guidance is always something that we have to be a little bit careful with, but we certainly see, really nice momentum with our lab. Of course, we're seeing, great transactions coming through, real cash flow. Our operations down south on the clinic are holding their own. The new Canadian clinic transaction and the additional rollouts that come behind it really give us, a lot more revenue runway. So, we see this thing, definitely in 2021, moving through to that sort of 10 million range right now. And it's hard to predict fully where the volumes, particularly on the new products coming out of the lab, what that will actually mean for us. So I can't give, any sort of full guidance on what that looks like, but we certainly see the demand. We talked a lot about it here earlier, and the Canadian clinic rollouts. We have a really precise financial model related to those. We know what each of those paramedical centers contributes. We know if it's a small market, what it will contribute. We know if it's a large market, what it will contribute. And so it's very predictable for us. We have a nice, formula. We have great metrics around what a rollout looks like. So we can be very methodical and we can be very precise in what we expect when we roll into a new market or we expand within an existing market. Because some of the larger markets, so you take the Greater Toronto area where the group is based right now, because of the size of that market, we can handle a lot of different standalone centers in that market. And then obviously we expand out from the GTA through other parts of Ontario, and then we start coming west as well, and then further to the east.
Okay. So in terms of M&A, activity going forward, what's in the hopper for the next year? We're entering the new year. weeks?
Yeah, so we're definitely going to continue to, expand our footprint in clinics, whether that's rolling out, organic clinics or in partnership, or looking for other strategic clinic acquisitions. So we're definitely active in the acquisition market. Let's put it that way. I'm constantly having transactions being presented to me. We're constantly looking for transactions. I would anticipate that we will be actively looking for additional lab acquisitions in the United States, and we'll definitely consider that for the Canadian market as well. Health Canada is a little bit slower in its sort of approval process for tests, but we anticipate more variety of tests will be available in the Canadian market with Health Canada support. And in fact, we are registered as Canadian correspondent on a new rapid antigen test with one of our pharmaceutical partners from the US. So we're in the game in Canada for sure. We're just excited to get our first clinic group on the ground, add all those practitioners, staffers, med techs to our books, and really just rapidly increase the size of our company.
Okay. We'll get a question about, are you getting a lab in Canada too?
We're looking at that. I don't have a particular one identified at this point in time, but we absolutely are starting to consider should we do that for Canada. What we've learned from the Kai Medical acquisition is that it is really a very good strategic fit to our healthcare strategy. We also see that it's accretive, and it's accretive quickly, right? So I was pleasantly surprised at how smooth the integration went, but more pleasantly surprised at how quickly we could start driving specimen traffic into the lab to drive more cash flow. So again, if that's kind of a roadmap for what the benefit of a lab can do when you acquire it at the right price, is in the right market, and you've got the ability to help drive volume into it. And that's what we had. We've got our clinics, Sun Valley Health in Arizona are actually driving volume to the lab. So they fit very nicely together. Having the clinic layer, driving specimens to a lab that you own is kind of helping control your own supply chain. And so I like the way that fits.
Jason is asking, what about lowering the cost of tests to how in terms of how are the pricing of your tests? How does it compare to the market? And
we're definitely right within the market. I mean, we're actually lower than a lot of other competitive test prices. And those prices that I gave you, remember that those are retail prices, right? So one of the ways for test pricing to come down is through increased volume, right? Volume really makes a difference. So as we look at larger transactions with larger industries or larger segments, I wouldn't anticipate that a wholesale transaction price is going to be $125. I would see that coming down because of scale. But if you've got guaranteed volume on a large scale, then it makes our whole processing system more efficient. We can then begin to potentially offer slightly lower prices to larger transactions simply because we have guaranteed scale. So that and that applies to any industry, right? This is not just about testing any sort of commodity. When you have guaranteed large volumes, you have the ability to be more competitive in your price offer.
And what are the margins like in the testing space?
The margins are strong. I won't quote specifically, but it's, again, the demand is so high that we can hold strong margin on this, and the lab industry is holding strong margins. Again, we are right. We're competitive. I mean, we see tests in markets that we serve, even around Arizona, that are priced at a much higher price point than what we're marketing our products at. But we feel we should be priced fairly. We do think that we want to be able to retain, strong margins for ourselves, but I don't think that we have to be outpricing or higher priced, the highest priced tests in the market. I think we've found a sort of fair price for that product and service that we offer.
Okay, Steve. So you did the kind of the testing aspect, or the T component. What's the timeline for like when is that going to be introduced? What?
Sorry, Jack, you just broke up. Could you repeat the question again?
You mentioned the sort of telemedicine, or the IoT.
Yeah.
You're using that example steps. So I guess it would be a wearable device that would do some sort of.
Yeah. So the reference to IoT is all of us consumers today, patients today, in one form or another, whether it's through your mobile device or it's on your, you might wear a Garmin, or you might wear an Apple Watch, and you track your health statistics. What we're talking about is connecting our technology layer to those devices. So a patient would provide permission for their health data to be pushed or pulled into our IT system, and that data could be made available, obviously on a private basis, to a physician. So a physician would have more data than they have today on their patient to be able to make better decisions about the delivery of healthcare or healthcare recommendations to the patient. So we're looking at how we utilize artificial intelligence and higher degrees of technology to improve patient care long term. Technology will be a crucial part of the delivery of healthcare in the years and decades to come. We just want to make sure that we are at the forefront. We recognize it. We want to invest in improvements. So we will certainly start doing that work as we get more clinics, we have more patients. We need to be a better technology provider than anybody else in the markets today.
And Steve, when is that going to? When are you going to bring that to the market?
So, we've already started the due diligence. We are working with different prospective software vendors today. So I would say that the project is underway. We haven't made any decisions yet. We haven't issued POs. We haven't entered into a contract, but we are already working through design elements. We are looking at how we basically scope this project. And this is a project that is not a 1 month, 3 month, 6 month project. This is a project that evolves and iterates over time. So you would be looking at a 2 to 3 year horizon where different features of this new technology layer start to come to play. Some are a little bit faster and easier. Some are much more sophisticated and just simply take more development time. But we have to start these projects now. This is an urgent, immediate need.
That's good. We got a lot of people interested in the testing.
Yeah.
Any potential testing at airports in Canada?
So the answer is yes. We are working with different airline consulting groups who specialize in airline relationships, airport relationships, hospitality, tourism, and so those conversations are taking place. We've previously announced a partnership with an AI company called Loop Insights, who specialize in contact tracing. They also are in discussions with big industries like airlines and airports and others. So we're very much, obviously, the testing layer, the manpower layer to do specimen collection, and then partnerships like Loop Insights are the contact tracing part of it. And really, industry needs both of those solutions to come together. And that's why we even entered into a partnership with Loop Insights because we really like their technology. Theirs is not an app, but it's actually secure wallet technology in your device. So you don't get tracked like an app, 24 hours a day. It's a check-in, check-out. But we're doing an integration with the back-end system of Loop Insights right now, so that we would have the ability to directly push the COVID result to the wallet of the individual person or traveler, whatever the case may be. And we think that's going to be very important sort of technology connection, as Loop are working on travel bubbles. They just came off finishing the NC2A bubble that was in Las Vegas for basketball, and they had a successful live version of that. So we fully anticipate participating with Loop Insights in programs like that, whether you want to refer to them as bubbles or travel bubbles, whatever they may be. But there's a need for service providers like us and a need for service providers like Loop coming together to solve these problems.
And we got a couple. Are you still? Was there like an initiative in the psychedelic space at some point, or is that what's happening there? I've got a lot of questions on that.
Very much. We are still very keen to be involved in the delivery of mental health care in the future. Our strength is with clinics and managing physicians and the delivery of care. Until we get our clinic layer on the ground with our Canadian acquisition, it's from that point that we'll start to get onto the mental health side of the business. How psychedelics play into that will really prove itself out over time. The psychedelic space, unlike the cannabis space or medical cannabis, is not going to be a recreational product. There will always be a need for clinics and physician care in the delivery of psychedelic treatment options as the regulatory framework comes along. So whatever that product set might be. So we absolutely are going to continue to participate in the mental health sector, but we need our clinic groups first, and then we start to expand with the delivery of mental health care and having the appropriate practitioners in our clinic layers, whether they're standalone clinics or as part of our integrated health system. That's still to be determined, but we definitely will have a position in mental health going forward.
Okay, so kind of here, like what's we're just a few year. Some of the issues, like what kind of news investors can expect from Power, in the first quarter of 2021.
Yeah, so from a news standpoint, I think what our investors, our followers, your participants in the show can expect is continued news on additional clinics rolling out in the Canadian market, continued information about the expansion of services within those clinics. There will be news about how we're moving further into the primary care sector and partnering with primary care more closely going forward into 2021. We definitely will be updating the market on our new saliva tests, our new mouth rinse test that's coming to market, and the impact on that. So volumes, enterprise contracts, KPIs such as how many tests are we processing each month, and what is that looking like? So that's the type of news. Acquisitions will always be at the forefront for us. So I would anticipate that there's going to be continued announcements on how we're expanding through accretive acquisitions, both in the US and in Canada.
Okay. Oh, yeah, interesting question. Okay, 65,000 patients, seeing these big revenues. Can you discuss how this is measured, revenue per patient metrics?
Sure. So the 165,000 patients is the total number of patients historically in our database that's been accumulated over the last 7 years, let's say. So you don't see or treat 165,000 patients each month, or even on an annual basis, you see a percentage of those patients. So we look at retention of patients. So when do we see the same patients again? Is it, once per month, once per year, once per 6 months? We also look at new patients coming in. And as our services evolve to be more focused on paramedical treatment options, and then ultimately through to primary care, those metrics for us will change, because in those services, so if you take paramedical services, you tend to see patients quite frequently. So if someone is coming in, perhaps they have an injury, perhaps they just want a massage, you tend not to see a patient once per year and that's it. You tend to see multiple repeat visits. And what we see in the paramedical world is that a patient may come in for, say, physiotherapy for an injury, and then later they come back for massage therapy, or later they come back for chiropractic treatments. So we see a crossover to other of our practitioners within the paramedical world. So it's one of the reasons we like this type of clinic model, because you get good repeat visits and you get more retention than perhaps in other of the services that we've provided in the past.
Yeah, and there's more services that you could layer in, so it becomes
Correct.
It works great. Okay, Steve, let's kind of recap. The favorite question again that we have: 3 reasons why investors should want to own a share today.
Well, I think you have to start with the sheer magnitude of the healthcare market. Healthcare is changing and rapidly evolving. The delivery of care is evolving and how it evolves. But the one thing that cannot be denied is it's essential, and it's a massive market around the world. The US market that we participate in is largest GDP in the world. Healthcare is enormous. So that alone, just the sheer size of the market. I think the other thing for us is I want everybody to understand how much we're focused on technology, and how technology is going to play such an important role in the delivery of healthcare going forward. So we recognize it. We're already very active with telemedicine. We use it every single day in our clinic delivery. So we can expect to be talking much more about how technology is going to play a big role for us. I think finally, when I look at the market out there, and I want your followers and our investors and shareholders to understand, I see, this, being a multi-billion-dollar company, a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. I look at the comps that are out there. I look at, in the US, you've got Amwell, you've got, Teladoc, which is TDoc. You've got success stories in Canada like Well Health. So they are getting really tremendous valuations, 30 and 40 times TTM, so trailing 12 months revenue. We're getting about 6 times right now. So if we could even get halfway there, I would be thrilled. We'd be a 60, 70 cent stock getting half of that valuation. You start to layer on all the new revenues that we've already secured for 2021, I think we've got some real potential here in our valuation going forward. And I expect that the market is going to start to reward us.
Yeah, I think that's a key takeaway. That a lot of the comps are, that's things that we like here is stocks would only have a big upside, but at the same time, they're cheap relative to their group based on those comps.
Right.
So, excellent. Okay, we'll look forward to having you back very soon with some big news, hopefully before the end of the year. So on that note, Steve, thank you for joining us on today in the live stream, and we'll see you on the next one.
Great, Jack. Thank you for the time. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Steve, again.